Good evening and a very warm welcome to First Issues, as once again we consider the concept of entrepreneurship. This time with a young man who at the tender age of 23 has already tried his hand at a number of personal ventures. From selling sweets as a teenager, trying his hand at a clothing label, and even supplying sub-sandwiches to a university store as a first-year student. Mogomotsi Hendrik, now a third-year economics student, offered up a long list of titles to describe what it is he currently does. Prominent amongst these are his roles as MD of MGKO Consultants, Certified Business Consultant and Company Secretary, and Peer Educator at Junior Achievement Botswana. As the fifth out of a total of 6 children growing up in Boseja Ward in Maung, he was put off by having to ask for money for chips and sweets when he wanted them. And by the time he was in junior school, he was buying a bag of sweets for 6 pula and selling them for 25. By the time he was a first-year student in university, he was sourcing ingredients every evening and up at the crack of dawn every morning to supply one of the shops on campus with sub-sandwiches, still in a bid to make extra money. He says that catering business was unsustainable and taxing, but taught him the lessons necessary and raised enough capital for his current business consultancy venture. Mogomotsi says he has now learned what many others have and continue to say, that you should do something you would do anyways for free, and that money should be the last consideration you make when starting off on a new business venture. He says it is that passion that will sustain you through the difficult times and push you towards a competitive excellence. His love is entrepreneurship itself. He discusses it, trains and equips himself in it, and helps anybody who asks him to help them with it. He's helped a fellow student start a venture that sold burgers to various workplaces, and who also recently bought an ice cream machine. He helped another invest in a public transport service. Most recently, he held a seminar entitled Leaving University with Your Business Ready and Running, in line with the consultancy services he offers through the University of Botswana Business Clinic. A clear example of taking what it is you love to do anyways and turning it into a business. He tells us what other factors motivated the staging of his event.
This event was motivated by a couple of factors. One of them is youth unemployment. One of them is the failure rate of youth businesses in Botswana. So, by this event, we are trying to urge varsity or university or college students, those who are interested in entrepreneurship and those who are interested in getting into businesses. We are challenging them to tell them that if you have a plan to get into business in the future or after you graduate, we advise them that you should leave varsity with your business ready and running, because these guys who are in school, they are trained on different fields, they have different degrees, so success rate of their businesses, the probability of them succeeding is very high. So we are just challenging them that you should start while you are in school, at the same time solving unemployment and other economic issues. Running your business will be done on part-time basis. You should do it on your free time, but sometimes, yes, I know there's a fact that the business can tend to become too big, of which now it will require more time and it will require more dedication. So what I will advise a person in such a condition is that that person should know to prioritize, because school comes first. You should get that degree first. So by that way, you'll be able to manage your time well and plan your activities, plan in advance so that it doesn't affect your schoolwork.
Being a full-time tertiary student is difficult. How then does Mogomotsi expect the young men and women he is encouraging to venture into entrepreneurial ventures during their university years to balance the pressures of a startup with the demands of their studies? Something he has had to struggle with in the past himself.
At first, the business was very small and it didn't require most of my time. So I just did it on a freestyle basis. But as business grew, I took advice of a friend that I should have a daily planner and write everything that I have to do, and then slot them on specific times where I know that I will be free. So, for example, I'm a business consultant and I only consult 4 hours in a day, and I have consultation hours. Those consultation hours, I draft them looking at my timetable. And during high stress times like the examination period, sometimes I delegate some of the stuff which are delegatable, and sometimes I just sacrifice most of the things. Sometimes I pass clients to some of my connections, some of the people that I know who are consultants here in Botswana.
And speaking of activating the genius within someone, this is my final question. There are two schools of thought as to entrepreneurship. Some people are of the view that anybody, given the right tools and motivation, can become an entrepreneur, while other people think people are born entrepreneurs. It's people who are more willing to take risks, dream big with no resources. What are your thoughts? Can anyone come and be inspired to be an entrepreneur, or you're looking to somebody who already has that desire?
My view is that anyone is capable of being an entrepreneur, but this really depends on what this person is trying to do. Because entrepreneurship is about doing what you love, but at the same time, I appreciate that with entrepreneurship, normally it starts with doing those things that you don't love, so that you can get to the point whereby you can do the things that you love. So everyone has a special genius and everyone has a special type of brain. So it just depends on how are you using your type of brain and which type of brain do you have. Because there are different people in business. There are people who are problem solvers. There are people who just wait for opportunities, who are very good to react to opportunities and grab them. And then there are people who are traders. Traders are normally those who tend to distribute things at a markup. So anyone can become an entrepreneur. The only important thing is to find the genius in you. What can you do best? Because entrepreneurship is a very challenging thing, and you have to do something which you love in order to persist, in order to continue doing what you do, in order to strive for success. And there are a lot of steps that you can take if you are really interested in entrepreneurship. Mentorship is one of them. Consultation is one of them. And one of the things is to find your motivation. What motivates you?
Looking around CBD from our interview location, our guest admitted to having long-held aspirations of owning magnificent structures, the likes of those shaping our new skyline. He also shared how the most upsetting response he's ever gotten with regards to his grand ambitions to becoming a real estate mogul was not incredulity, but rather somebody telling him, "Ising mo Botswana." I guess only time will tell in the end who was right. I personally believe you cannot have anything you cannot first conceive in your mind, that everything begins as an idea. Up next, however, we help students prepare for the upcoming exam season with the help of a lecturer from the University of Botswana Study Skills Department. Welcome back as we now turn our attention to study skills, the foundation of lifelong learning and therefore the foundation for career success. We took our cameras to the University of Botswana Library last week, where I had to respect the dozens of students hard at work on every floor of the massive building and the rule of every library anywhere, which is of course to keep my voice down. The government of Botswana has and continues to spend more on education than any other sector in the economy, that is above health, security, transport and communication, and others. This is to demonstrate the stated objective to highly prioritize human capital development, recognized by government as being critical for capacity building, citizen economic empowerment, as well as social and economic development. According to a 2015 report titled Tertiary Education at a Glance by the Human Resource Development Council in conjunction with Statistics Botswana, during the 2014-2015 financial year, of the 60,583 students enrolled in tertiary institutions, 95% are reported to be government-sponsored. This has resulted in 2 billion pula being spent by government on sponsored students on tuition and allowances in the last 7 years. This is despite the fact that the Ministry of Education and Skills Development has drastically reduced the number of students sent to study abroad. 2,706 students were sent to study abroad during the 2007-2008 financial year, compared to only 204 during the 2014-2015 financial year. A huge long-term investment has been made into everyone that is currently enrolled in our tertiary institutions, and therefore great care must be taken to ensure that the opportunities that have been created are fully utilized. Dr. Kyoneing Magocha, Communications Lecturer at the University of Botswana Department of Study Skills, joins us now, sharing the point at which most students go wrong when preparing for their exams.
There are quite a number of factors that contribute towards that. And to start with, I wouldn't want to say what normally goes wrong when they prepare, because that gives the impression that it is at the preparation stage where things go wrong. Maybe one would want to start with the question of procrastination, if I may put it that way. You see, preparing for an examination is not a one-shot thing where you start preparing when the examinations are about to take place. It has to be a consistent exercise that is carried out over a period of time. And looking at the work culture inherent amongst our students, one realizes that there is that culture of procrastination, where students would keep putting off working or doing their academic work, examinations being a part of that. And it also has to do with time management, if I may put it. You will appreciate that university students encounter, a lot of challenges, some which have to do with their social life. And so there are a lot of things that compete for the students' time, and planning to do your work becomes, a very critical aspect of a student's life. And many students don't, get into the rhythm of going through the moves, and so they keep putting off doing their academic work. And you find at the end, a lot of time is congested, into a lot of work rather is congested into the last few weeks, of the semester. So if they could sort of plan their work carefully and start from day one, it would really help, release time for academic work.
In which ways does the University of Botswana in particular educate and equip its students with regards to the skills necessary to be successful in their studies, such as time management?
We have a course called time management, where we expose them to techniques of time management. And again, I think our Department of Welfare and Student Services, they also do offer workshops on time management, and I think individual assistance is also given to students.
When exploring the distractions that often derail students from their studies, Mr. Magwacha describes university years as ones in which many people have to manage newfound freedoms along with their increased responsibilities.
As a university student, this is the first time in your life when you have such flexi time. At secondary schools, you know, the program is rigid and they are told when to study and sometimes even what to study. But here, it's the student who is really in charge of what they want to do, when, and how. And so it is not uncommon, you know, to find a student going out and evening out a day or so before the examination. Of course, that's something that will not help them pass their examination unless they have been consistently, you know, working. Time management, dealing with stress issues of stress management also come in a lot, and we have had students who did not do well in their examinations and continuous assessment because of the stress weight, where students would, you know, not know what to do under such circumstances, and some end up withdrawing from the university.
Among the many factors that determine whether or not someone will do well in university, our guest singles out study skills as a critical component, saying that some students do not even know the difference between reading for enjoyment and reading for an exam.
You find a student is reading for an examination and just reading from a textbook and without noting down any important point, extracting any important point. And you find they are simply reading for knowledge. In my view, if you are preparing for an examination and you are reading, you should have in mind a question or a set of questions, and to which you are looking for information to answer. And so study skills, examination study skills are critical. It also entails knowing or being familiar with the type of examination questions that are likely to be asked. I'm not talking about specific questions where you spot or you prepare for specific questions. I'm talking about types of question. For instance, a discussion question, for instance, a description, a definition. Now, as lecturers, we expect students to answer a description questions in a specific way. And so, because students will not have been familiarized with the expectations in terms of how to answer such questions, you find that they do not answer in ways that would attract, you know, positive assessment from the lecturers. So in a way, there is a discrepancy. The other problem that I have noted in my experience here is the lack of a competitive attitude on the part of the students. In my days, students were highly positively motivated, you know, to want to achieve excellent marks. Nowadays, our students are just happy with passing and not necessarily passing very well. I think there is need really for students to change their attitudes and become more and more competitive. And I think if one could suggest to industry that industry should look for excellent performers, and that should be the basis of recruitment. I think that will motivate students to more and more want to not just get a pass, what we used to call Madoda score, but to get an excellent mark. Yeah. So that, in my view, contributes to mediocre performance, and there's a lot of mediocre performance in our universities.
As we conclude our conversation, Dr. Malgotsha shares more tips to help you prepare for end-of-semester exams, saying it's never too late to start practicing the right techniques for a life stage that has such monumental consequences for a person's life.
As a university student, you have ahead of you 4 years. 4 years of study, and then the rest of your life. And that if you can dedicate the 4 years to study and study hard, there is no stopping, there is nothing stopping you, from getting good grades, which will ensure a better future. Minimize the effect of your social life on your academic work. Focus on your academic work, and you will have a lot more time for other things. I've gone through different levels of studies, and at each level I have found group work, group study to be an effective technique. Where as individuals we form study groups and we assign each other topics, and we commit to doing research on those topics and sharing the information that we would have gotten with our members of our group. And that for me has always worked wonders.
We concur that cultivating an attitude of excellence is not one that can only serve our students, but benefit the nation as well. Until next week and another episode of First Issues, I, Mametso Samakula, the team behind First Issues, and our sponsors, First National Bank, wish you a good night and pleasant viewing.